The sky was a black blanket with no moon, no stars, only long strips of cloud moving like slow smoke. Somewhere far away a dog barked, then stopped, as if it too felt danger. Ahmad sat on the edge of the camp behind a wall of sandbags and broken stones, his hands tight on his rifle, though he was not pointing it at anyone. His mouth was dry, his heart beat in his throat. He did not know why, but he knew something was coming. He touched his chest pocket. Inside it was a small Quran with a green cover, old and soft from his mother's fingers. She had given it to him on the day he left home. She had stood in the doorway of their small house with her scarf wet with tears, pressed the book to his chest and said, "My son, keep this close. Read even one line when you are afraid. If you forget everything, do not forget Allah." He had promised. He had kissed her hands. He had walked away with the sound of her dua in his ears. Now the night smelled of dust and old smoke. The ruined town around them was quiet, empty streets, broken doors, windows like blind eyes. The captain had told the men to sleep in shifts. Ahmad was on watch with two others, Karim and Samir. They spoke little. When soldiers talk too much at night, bullets often answer. Ahmad shifted, trying to stop his legs from shaking. He was not a coward. He had worked hard on his father's farm since he was a boy, lifting heavy sacks, plowing the hard ground when the sun burned the back of his neck. But war was different. On the farm, the earth hurt you and fed you at the same time. Here, the earth hid people with guns. He slid the Quran out of his pocket and opened it by touch. He could not see the letters in the dark, but his tongue remembered. "Bismillah," he whispered. The old words filled the empty air. His chest loosened a little. He closed the book and put it back against his heart. A sound came from the left, a small scrape of metal on stone. Karim's head turned. Samir raised a hand to warn silence. Ahmad held his breath. The scrape did not come again. Only the wind moved, a thin finger drawing lines in the sand. Minutes passed like slow drops of water. Ahmad counted to 100 in his head. He reached the number and started again. When he reached 70 on the second round, the world cracked open. A single bright flash, a sharp whistle, then the angry rattle of many guns at once. "Down!" Karim shouted. Sand jumped in front of Ahmad's face. He dropped behind the sandbag wall and felt pieces of stone bite his cheek. He rolled, found a hole between bags, and fired 2 shots into the dark. He did not see anyone. He did not know if he hit anyone. He only knew that something like a hammer struck his chest, hard enough to knock the air from his lungs. He fell back. The sky tilted. The sound of battle became a thick, distant roar as if he were underwater. He thought, "This is death. It is simple. It is a door." His hands went to his chest and felt the small Quran under his jacket. It was warm. It was strange. He pulled it out and stared with eyes that did not want to blink. There was a hole in the soft green cover, a clean, round mouth where the bullet had entered. The pages inside were torn and crushed. He pushed with his thumb and felt cold metal stuck deep in the middle of the book. He waited for pain, for the wet heat of blood. There was none. "Ahmad," Karim's voice. A shadow bent over him. "Are you hit?" Ahmad held up the book. His mouth opened, but no words came. Karim saw the hole, saw the twisted metal in the pages, and his eyes filled with fear and wonder at the same time. "Subhanallah," he whispered. "Get down! Get down!" They crawled. Bullets cut the air like angry bees. The captain's orders came like short knives. "Left side, push!" A rocket hissed and exploded a house front, turning a window into a mouth of fire. Someone screamed. Someone stopped screaming. Ahmad clutched the Quran and pushed it hard back into his pocket as if that would push life back into his ribs. When the firing finally slowed, when the enemy melted away into the broken streets, the men lay still waiting for a trick. No more shots came. A long quiet fell, heavy and hot. The captain moved along the line, checking, counting, touching shoulders. 2 men were hurt, one in the leg, one in the arm. No one else was dead. The captain looked at Ahmad's pale face. "You all right?" Ahmad nodded. His voice was a piece of dry bread. "Yes." "What happened?" the captain asked. Ahmad pulled out the Quran. He showed the hole. He did not trust his voice, so he said nothing. The captain touched the torn cover gently with the back of his finger, as if the book were a sleeping child. He took a long breath and made a short dua under it. Then he patted Ahmad's shoulder twice, hard and kind. Clean up. Pray, Fajr. We move at sunrise. The men gathered behind a low wall. The sky in the east began to soften from black to dark blue. A thin line of silver drew itself along the edge of the world. The muezzin's call did not come from any minaret, because the minaret in this town lay broken like a fallen tree. But Karim stood, lifted his hands to his ears, and called the adhan with a voice that was strong and simple. The words ran along the empty street and climbed the walls and went into the open sky. They prayed on the bare ground. Ahmad felt the little book press against his ribs every time he bent. His forehead touched the cold dust. Tears ran from his eyes into the ground. He did not know what to say to Allah. He did not have big words. He only had, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." After prayer, the men wrapped their scarves and ate dry bread and dates. Karim sat beside Ahmad and looked at him with a face still full of the night's shock. "Brother, tell me true," he said softly. "Were you hit?" "I felt it," Ahmad said, "like the door of a house hitting my chest." "And the book?" "It took it." Karim nodded slowly. "Your mother's dua," he said. Ahmad smiled with his mouth only. "My mother's dua." He saw her in his mind, standing at the gate, not letting her tears fall until he could not see her anymore. They moved out when the sun rose like a small coin from the far sand. The town behind them looked empty and tired. The road ahead went between low hills. Their boots made small sounds. Ahmad walked in the middle of the line and kept feeling his pocket like a man checking his heartbeat. On the second day of marching, they reached a river that was not much of a river anymore. The bridge was broken in the middle. The water below was brown and slow. Children watched the soldiers from far away, standing behind a woman with a scarf, all of them thin as shadows. The captain spoke to the woman, asked about enemy patrols, food, medicine. She looked at the ground when she answered. She did not ask for anything, but the captain gave her a bag of rice and some sugar. She began to cry without sound, and still she said, "We have enough." The captain left the bag anyway and told the boy to hide it under the floor so no one would steal it. That night, they slept in a school with no doors. The blackboard still had the last lesson written on it in chalk. Dates and numbers, a word about the moon. Someone had drawn a camel. Ahmad lay on the floor in a corner and took out the Quran. He turned the pages until he found the one where the bullet slept. The words around it were chewed and torn. They spoke of Allah being near when people call. He read them aloud to himself until his voice stopped shaking. He dreamed of his father that night. His father was sitting under the fig tree at home, mending a rope, his big fingers slow and careful. "Son," his father said without looking up, "the rope is made strong by twisting many thin lines. One line alone snaps. Hold to the Quran, to prayer, to honesty, to patience. Twist them together. That is your rope." When Ahmad woke, the dream felt like a message written on the inside of his ribs. Days turned to weeks. There were more nights with gunfire, more mornings with prayers on dirt, more afternoons with tired feet and heavy packs. Ahmad changed in a way he did not see at first. He spoke less. He listened more. When he saw a farmer beating a donkey to make it move, he stepped forward and took the stick gently and said, "Brother, the animal is hungry, not stubborn." The farmer stared, then lowered his eyes. Karim smiled later and said, "You talk like an old imam now." Ahmad shook his head and said, "No, I talk like a man who knows what a bullet feels like, even when it does not enter." One evening, the unit stopped at a small village where the mosque still stood, though one corner of the roof was gone. The imam was an old man with a beard white as milk. He welcomed the soldiers with tea in cracked cups. He looked at Ahmad and said, "You have a story in your eyes." Ahmad told him about the night in the town, the bullet, the book. The old imam listened without blinking. When the story ended, he reached out and touched the Quran as if greeting an old friend. "Allah has shown you his kindness," he said. Now your job is to show kindness to his servants." "How?" Ahmad asked. "I am only a soldier." "Be a soldier of mercy," the Imam said. "A soldier can point a gun or offer a hand. Many times the hand is stronger." The next day, the unit helped fix the broken corner of the mosque roof with wood from a fallen house and nails found in a chest. Ahmad climbed the ladder with Karim and hammered boards while the old Imam made dua below. It was a small thing, but when they finished, the mosque looked less sad, and the old man's smile made the sky feel wider. Not every day had kindness. One afternoon, they walked into an ambush on a narrow road between low walls. The enemy fired from behind the stones and from a tree. Samir fell with a cry and did not move again. The captain shouted, and the men pulled back, crawling like lizards over hot rocks. Ahmad felt a cold anger rising in his throat. He wanted to stand and shoot until his rifle clicked empty. He wanted the pain in his chest to find a face. His hand went to his pocket. The small book was there, warm with the heat of his skin. He took a slow breath. He remembered the old Imam's words. He held the line. He covered the retreat. He dragged Samir by his belt when the fire paused. Samir was gone. Ahmad wept later, alone, sitting on a step with his face in his hands. "Ya Allah, give him light," he said. "Forgive my anger." News came at the end of a long, hot month. The fighting would slow, a ceasefire. The unit would go home in 2 weeks. Men smiled like boys with sweet cakes. Someone made tea with too much sugar. Someone took a small radio from his bag and turned on a song from years ago. Ahmad sat on a step and watched a line of ants carry crumbs to a crack in the floor. He thought of his mother's hands, working dough, washing rice, pressing the Quran to his chest. He wanted to run the whole way home. The last patrol before leaving was supposed to be easy. They would take food to an old woman who lived alone near the orange grove and make sure no mines lay under the dirt where children walked. The air was soft with the smell of oranges. A small stream whispered to itself in the ditch. The world seemed to have remembered how to be kind. Ahmad walked in front with a long stick, tapping the ground. Karim walked behind him, carrying the bag of flour for the old woman. The captain and 2 others spread out to the sides. Birds flashed between the trees like pieces of blue cloth. The stick struck metal. A thin, dry sound. Ahmad froze, Karim froze, the captain raised his fist to stop the line. Ahmad looked down at the spot where his stick touched. He saw nothing, only dust, a few weeds, a bit of glass. He did not move his foot. He did not swallow. He did not blink. "Mine?" Karim whispered. "Maybe," Ahmad breathed. The captain came slowly, each foot careful, his eyes on the ground like a man reading a letter. He knelt and brushed the dust with a feather brush from his pocket. A small circle of metal showed, old and dull. The captain exhaled. "You did well," he said softly. He marked the spot with a stone. He moved around it like a dancer in slow motion. They made a path with stones for the children and for the old woman. They would call the engineers later. The old woman cried when they brought the flour and told the story of the mine. She said she had felt a fear in her bones all week. She said, "Allah sent you." The day they finally went home, the town by the river looked like a place after a long sickness. Smoke no longer rose from the far hill. Dogs lay in the shade without fear. Children played a game with stones on a flat piece of wood and argued about the rules. The unit climbed into a truck with wood sides. The engine coughed, then found its voice. The road out of the valley was the same road they had taken in, but it felt different because their hearts were different. When the truck turned onto the main highway, Ahmad felt a pulling in his chest like a fish line. He put his hand on his pocket. The Quran was there, as it had been every day since the night it had eaten a bullet. He closed his eyes and saw his mother standing at the gate again. He opened them and saw her in real life, not a memory, when the truck finally stopped at the edge of their village. She was smaller than he remembered, or maybe life had smoothed her down like a river stone. She held her scarf with 2 fingers as if the wind might steal it. Then she saw him, and the scarf fell, and her hands rose and her mouth opened in a sound that was not a word. He ran to her and fell into her arms like a child. He did not care who saw. He did not care about the dust on his face or the gun on his shoulder. He only cared that he could smell the soap she used, the bread she baked, the skin of the woman who had prayed him through nights he never wanted to see again. Inside the house, his sister brought water and dates. His father, slower now, stood with his back straight and his eyes wet. There were neighbors and cousins and a small crowd of children at the door, all talking at once, all asking questions that could wait. Ahmad reached into his pocket and took out the Quran. He put it on the table with both hands. His mother looked at the torn cover. She touched it as she might touch a baby's hair. When she saw the dark mouth of the bullet wound in the pages, she made a small sound and covered her face and cried. Ahmad put his arm around her shoulders. "Your dua," he said. "Your dua tied a rope around my chest." That evening, Ahmad told the story. He did not make it big. He did not use brave words. He told it the way it had happened. The sound of the scrape, the flash, the hammer on his chest, the hole in the green cover, the cold metal sleeping in the words of Allah. He told it to his father and his mother and his sister. He told it to the neighbors who filled the door and the window. He told it to the children who made their eyes wide and their mouths small. He ended with the same words every time. Allah saved me. I must spend my second life serving him. Life did not become perfect. There were still bills to pay, fields to plow, roofs to mend. Ahmad worked with his father in the mornings and helped the imam teach children Quran in the afternoons. He sat with old men under the fig tree and listened to the news from the radio. He fixed taps that leaked and doors that stuck. He married a woman from the next village who wore a blue scarf and laughed when a goat ate her scarf edge. They had a son and then a daughter. He named the boy Samir after the friend who did not come home. He named the girl Rama because Mercy had brought him back. On the first Friday after he came home, Ahmad took the Quran with the bullet to the mosque. He did not show it during the khutbah. He did not hold it up like a trophy. After prayer, when people were greeting one another, he stood near the door with the book on a cloth. Whoever wanted to look could look. Whoever wanted to touch could touch. Some men kissed it, some only looked and nodded. One old man cried quietly for a long time. A boy asked if the bullet hurt the book. Ahmad said, "It hurt the pages, but not the words." The imam nodded and said, "Yes, the words are beyond metal." Months later, a teacher from the city heard about the book and came to see. He took a photograph of it. He asked Ahmad to tell the story into a small machine with a red light. Ahmad did not like machines much, but he told the story again because stories are also a kind of rope, tying the living to each other and to the truth. The teacher put the photo in a small newspaper. People in places Ahmad would never visit read about a small green book that had caught a piece of metal as easily as a mother catching a falling cup. Not every memory was easy. Sometimes at night, Ahmad woke with the taste of dust in his mouth and the sound of a hammer in his chest. He would get up and sit outside under the fig tree. The sky above the village was not full of city lights, so the stars could breathe there. He would hold the Quran in his lap and read by the small lamp. He would read until the tightness in his chest loosened, until the night felt like a place with a door that led to mercy. He kept the book by his bed. He never tried to pull out the bullet. People asked him why. He would say, "Because the book pulled me out of death. Let the bullet stay." On the anniversary of the night in the ruined town, he fasted and gave food to a widow. He told his children, "If you keep Allah's words close when the sky is blue, they will be closer when the sky is black." Years passed. Ahmad's hair turned the color of the imam's beard. His son grew tall. His daughter wrote poems on the back of flour sacks. The country healed in ways and stayed broken in others, as countries do. Ahmad planted 2 more fig trees and a line of mint. He became the man people called when a neighbor's cow was sick or when 2 brothers were not speaking. He would sit between them, listen more than he talked, and when he spoke he would say small, true things. He did not tell everyone to fight like a soldier. He told them to be patient like a farmer. He told them to be brave like a mother who prays all night. One autumn afternoon, a young soldier came to the village on leave. He had heard the story and wanted to see the book. He was thin and serious and tried not to show that he was afraid of going back, Ahmad welcomed him, put tea on the stove, set the book on the table. The young man touched the torn cover and asked, "Uncle, does this mean if I carry a Quran, I will not die?" Ahmad shook his head gently. "It means your life and death are in Allah's hands. The book is not a magic stone, it is a message. It tells you who to trust. Carry it in your pocket, yes, but carry it more in your heart." The young man lowered his eyes. "I miss my mother," he said. "Call her tonight," Ahmad said. "Let her dua go before you." When Ahmad's mother grew very old, her hands shook so much that she could not hold a cup. Ahmad fed her with a spoon like she had fed him when he had no teeth. Sometimes she would forget where she was, but she never forgot the dua she had made the day he left for war. She repeated it in a thin voice. "Ya Allah, bring my son back to me with his faith safe." Ahmad would kiss her forehead and say, "Your dua arrives before me everywhere." When she died, he washed her with water and tears. He buried her in the small graveyard near the fig tree and read Quran until the sun slid down. When Ahmad grew sick at last, it was not a sudden thing. It was a slow winter that lasted many months. He could still walk to the mosque, but with a cane. He could still laugh, but softer. He told his son and daughter where the important papers were, where the tools were, where the stories were. He told them not to fight over small things. He told them that the Quran should go to whoever needed it most, but the bullet must stay in it. He said, "Leave the mark of mercy where the next eyes can see it." On his last night, he asked his son to open the book and read the page with the scar. The page had grown thin with years, but the words were strong. His son read in a voice that shook and then steadied. Words about Allah being near when the caller calls. Words about patience, truth, faith. Ahmad listened with his eyes closed. He smiled. He whispered, "The rope held." Then he slept in a sleep that did not end. People came from the village, and from villages he had never seen. They stood under the fig trees and told each other small, true things about a man who had carried a book and been carried by it. They prayed. They ate dates in silence. The Imam, older than before, put his hand on the Quran with the bullet and said, "A sign is a gift, but a life turned by a sign is the thanks." The book stayed in the house. Sometimes Ahmad's daughter would open it and touch the torn page, not to hurt it, but to remember. Sometimes Ahmad's son would tell his children about a night with no stars and a flash like a door and a small green book that turned metal into a story. The children would ask, "Did the book feel pain?" And he would answer what his father had answered. "It hurt the pages, but not the words." Then he would say, "Keep the words where bullets cannot go." And in the village, when the wind held its breath on a dark night and the dogs fell silent and the sky became a black blanket with slow smoke clouds, people remembered that Allah's mercy can move through quiet things, through a mother's dua, through a small book in a pocket, through a hand that offers help instead of harm, through a heart that decides to bend instead of break. The desert still listened. The stars still hid and showed themselves. The rope of thin lines twisted together held firm between earth and heaven. And the Quran with the bullet sleeping in its middle lay on an old wooden shelf, not as a trophy, not as a lucky charm, but as a witness that Allah can place between a heart and a piece of flying metal His own words. And that is enough.